When we look at identity in the context of evolution, we have to look at the identity, the patterns, the repeating patterns that are life's code, at least from our limited perception. So one of the things that we can see is that life is getting bigger. We started out with the Big Bang, and from the instant the bang occurred, life has been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So life is getting bigger. Life is getting longer. If we look at time, the bigger the gaps between two objects, the more time is created in the transition between those gaps. If life is getting bigger because the patterns within life are moving further apart, it takes more time to go from one to the other the further apart they become. So life is becoming longer. There's more and more time and there's more and more space every second that the universe has been in existence. So life is getting bigger, it's getting longer. Life is also getting more complex. In the 24 billion years we're currently estimating as our current story for how long life's been going on, life is getting more and more complex. Human beings didn't just pop onto the earth and then disappear, and then later mushrooms evolved, and then later just amoebic slime. It's going the other way round. These gases combined into these gases, this combined into this combined into this combined into these. These species had sex and became this species had sex and became this species. So life is getting more and more complex. So it's getting bigger, it's getting longer, it's getting more complex. Now, it's also becoming more intelligent. As it becomes more complex, it becomes more intelligent. Now, you can think of the complexity of a horse and buggy, and then the complexity of a Tesla Model S. The Tesla Model S has more complexity in its manufacturer, in its composition, in the number of parts than a horse and buggy. As it becomes more complex, it becomes more efficient. Complexity and efficiency go together in certain areas of the probability field. Now, you also get inefficiency. As governments become more and more bureaucratic and complex, they become more inefficient. But in certain areas of the probability field, when you intelligently combine lots of unique and complex parts, you get a synergy. And the more parts you have to choose from, the more shapes, the more materials, the more you can apply intelligence to increase the amount you get from a given technology with a given amount of effort. Right? So a cell phone takes less energy than delivering a letter. What do I mean? Well, you get into a boat and sail across the Atlantic and gallop on horseback and say, here's your letter. And then you get on, you wait for a night for your horse to rest, and then you get the return letter and you gallop back, and 6 weeks later, after a tremendous amount of time, money, and natural resources, the letter is returned. So that system is more intelligent than no letter. But a cell phone, texting across the globe via satellite, took 1,000 times less energy and 1,000 times less time, 1,000 times less space, 1,000 times less natural resources. It took less, but it was faster and more useful. And more reliable. The cell phone didn't get sick of pneumonia on the way across the Atlantic. The horse or the message deliverer might, or a storm might have crashed the boat, or the wind might have stopped blowing. So we can see that at least part of life is getting more complex, and that part of that complexity is leading to greater and greater intelligence. And if we look at the species of humanity, we can see an explosion of complexity and an explosion of intelligent synergies with that complexity, producing an explosion of efficiency. Meaning, over the last 500 years, we have got manufacturing and various other things so efficient and so complex simultaneously that an average person can make a video like this on the back of more than 10 million hours of human labor. More than 10 million hours of human labor went into designing camera lenses, creating digital cameras, creating the internet. So in fact, more than 1 billion hours has gone into that. But I'm able to, in an hour, leverage 1 billion human hours. And the billion people don't have to spend that 1 billion hours again for me to make this video. Every hour I spend online is leveraging more than 1 billion human hours. The invention of electricity, the Bronze Age, government, nationalized utilities, the internet, fiber, lighting, the invention of light, cameras, screens. This is on the back of all of it. And then there's the language, hundreds of thousands of years of language development. In the clothing industry, it's incredible what we're leveraging in the living of each moment of our lives today. So that's what life is up to. We could say that life is in the business of getting bigger, getting faster, getting longer, getting more complex, and that some parts of life are in the business of getting more and more intelligent, meaning more and more efficient at creating sustainable well-being with less and less energy, less and less time, money, and natural resources expended. So that's what life is up to on this planet with the human species. So it's worth noting that our identity has an intelligence quotient, meaning if I spend vast amounts of time, money, and natural resources and feel chronically miserable while making lots of other people feel chronically miserable, you could say that I'm very stupid because I'm consuming energy and I'm failing to achieve whatever human being wants, which is to feel sustainably better. Now that's a circuitous path. People get cross-wired. Some people feel better when they make other people feel more miserable. But the reason they're making other people feel more miserable is that they've learned that it feels better to make other people feel more miserable than to have no impact or existence at all, for example. So they've climbed the hierarchy slightly. I've gone from feeling complete meaningless to my whole purpose in life. I now have a purpose. It's wonderful. I have a purpose to make people miserable. So I've gone from purposelessness to purpose. And now I'm really successful at making people miserable, but, is there a better identity? Is there a better purpose? A more intelligent purpose? What about the purpose of making myself happy? Well, there's an idea. Well, then you have to spend time and energy at that. And now you're feeling happier because you now have another purpose. You're still purposeful, but now you've got a happier purpose, meaning you feel better with that purpose than this purpose. So you're making progress. Every person innately is driven to feel sustainably better and avoid feeling chronically worse. And that's a graduated step. You can, there's many parts of that. There's meaning, there's purpose. There's all the sensory perceptions. There's integration. There's evolution. There's, meeting one's human needs for survival, security, love, and belonging. And all of those different things coming together, well-being goes up. But when you're unskilled, your well-being goes up and then it crashes and it goes up. And when it crashes, you want to go steadily up with mastery. That's what everyone wants. The question is, how good are we at it? Well, if our life goes up and down, we're not very good at it. If our life has plateaued, we don't know how to go up. Maybe it's we don't know how to go up and risk the unknown. You can't change and avoid all risk. So we don't change and we don't risk. So the level of well-being we're able to master is avoiding risk. And then at some point that becomes boring, and then we want the level of well-being of ecstasy, but then we have to risk change, which means we risk pain and failure. Well, I don't want to do that. Well, okay, but then you just stay in your status quo, right? So we're all on that journey, and we're coming at it from different angles. But what life is in the business of is creating higher and higher complexity, and out of that generating higher and higher states of intelligence, as measured by the efficiency with which energy is transformed into sustainable well-being. A sustainable ecology of millions of different species is highly intelligent. It's a great game that life is playing on one of its trillions upon trillions of planets. Here's 1 billion different species, all eating each other, turning this, doing that, doing this, doing that, and then every couple of years a new species mutates and grows out of it, and sometimes this happens, and sometimes this happens. And 1 billion years later, it's still going, even, it's going faster, more complex, more interesting than it was 1 billion years before. Oops, and then there's an asteroid and this, and we start over again. But life's got time, endless amounts of it. Life is going to be here 1 trillion years from now. We won't, but life will. And so you can ask, well, what are we up to? What is our role in this vast pattern of life, of energy relating with energy in a variety of patterns, in an integrated framework, in an ecological framework, in which no piece is separate from all the other pieces? What are we about? Well, one idea is that we are in service to life when we take and import the clone pattern of our parents and our culture and master it. We learn how to talk, we learn how to speak, we learn how to think, we learn what to do, what to say, what to feel in our cult. We master the program. We import it on an empty hard drive. We then experience the innate flaws in every cult, in every system, in every technology. Every pattern has a flaw. Every pattern is somewhat inefficient. Every pattern can be improved. Nothing is perfect. So we then criticize the hell out of everything as we move into adolescence. We say that's dumb. Why did Dad have to say that? Right as Mom was going to give him a hug. That was the time he had to start shouting about the toothpaste? What a dumb pattern. He does it all the time. It's a dumb pattern. I am not going to do that. Thank you, Dad, for teaching me a dumb pattern, but I'm not going to do that. when my wife wants to give me a hug, I'm going to say, screw toothbrushing, let's have a hug. Now, I'm going to feel better than Dad did because I'm doing a more intelligent pattern. I've iterated, I've criticized, and now I've iterated the pattern. But I've now got a better pattern, but I'm still dumb, right? Now, my children, if I have witnesses or procreate, my children are going to look at me and say, why did you go to university when you could have learned so much more interesting stuff on a tablet for free? What were you thinking? $100,000 in debt, going to all the, you're nuts. And they're going to have a more intelligent pattern of existing than I am. And they're going to have kids, and their kids are going to learn to use a tablet until they, oh my goodness, tablets? You haven't learned telepathy? You haven't learned internal brain Bluetooth? My goodness, what were you thinking? Tapping away all that time, giving your fingers. Of course you're, so tough and time consuming, right? And so life evolves. So we are each servants in the game of life. Life's doing its thing with time on its side. 1 billion asteroids can hit the Earth, and 1 trillion years later, something even more interesting than today will be reignited in the algorithm of life. And if not on this planet, on one of the other many trillions of planets out there. Life is getting bigger. Life is getting longer. Life is getting more complex. And as we take the patterns of life that were given to us, iterate them to create more sustainable well-being for ourselves, others, and our ecology, we give that pattern back to life in the next generation. And if we stay at the pinnacle of life in our given ecosphere and keep evolving, we are in service to life. And if something more intelligent, more efficient comes along and consumes the energy of life that we are currently hosting, then life becomes more efficient, and we serve life in our death. We have consumed by our existence billions upon billions of patterns of energy that have fallen by the wayside in all of life's many iterations, many experiments. Life sends out 1,000 dandelion seeds from a single plant, and maybe 3 take hold, and the rest are no more. Life sends out more than 1 trillion planets with an infinite amount of time to evolve. Some do, some don't, and some of them can populate the entire universe with intelligent life at some point. And others give way. We are part of life. We're playing a game that can't be lost. Oh, this player can lose, and this planet can lose. But it's like rolling dice with 10 trillion die. If you've got 10 trillion die and an infinite amount of time to roll them, you're going to come up with a few lucky sixes from time to time. If not here, then here. If not here, then here. We are one of life's many instruments, one of life's many patterns. Our identity, our pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being is unique. And if it is more intelligent, at converting time, money, natural resources, and other forms of energy into sustainable well-being, we will serve life in our ascension. If we go downhill, which 99% of all patterns do at some point, 99% of every country that has ever existed no longer exists. 95% of every culture that has ever existed is extinct. But the energy in the fossil, in the oil, in the extinct culture, the energy remains for life to rework it again and again and again in the endless path of intelligence. So to be in service, to be truly useful to life, carefully copy everything that you've learned. Criticize and skeptically analyze every single bit with the question, is this really the most efficient way to create sustainable well-being? Iterate, experiment, and practice and create new forms of life and give them back before you die. Let others see the results, the fruits of your pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being, so that they can copy them, criticize them, and iterate them on the endless journey of life.